Hey everyone, my name is Charlie and today I would like to share my thoughts on Darling by India Knight. This book is a retelling of The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford set in the modern day. And I think that the blurb on the back of this book relies heavily on the reader knowing that fact. And whilst I say that the blurb relies heavily on the reader knowing the original text, The Pursuit of Love, I would say that the entire novel almost relies on you knowing that. But part of me wonders whether a reader needs to have read the original text to read Darling. Because whilst I was reading this book, I really enjoyed myself. At first I was reading it slowly because I started reading this when I had a lot going on, i.e. work, so I didn't sit down to fully read it until Sunday, when I read the last 200 pages of the book. And I sped through this book because I really enjoyed getting to know more about Linda and seeing her exploits. And whilst I was reading this, I found myself reminded of a Kate Atkinson, which is exactly what I wanted when I set out to read this one, is a book that reminded me of Kate Atkinson's books in which the families are eccentric and we're just getting to see these characters live their lives. This is set against the backdrop of Linda going through all these various love affairs, and it's all told from the perspective of her cousin Franny. At first I did not expect it to be Franny's voice telling the story, but I believe that if you've read the original text, then you know that the narrator is not the protagonist herself. For me, that was an interesting way to do things. In this book, Franny is our everyman. She is our way into the world, similar to the way that Thomas Senlin was in Senlin Ascends. It's something that we see regularly in fiction. We saw it with Hastings in the Poirot books and Dr. Watson in Sherlock Holmes. Having that character that becomes the reader's gateway into the world, and almost as though you are having a friend tell you the story of this eccentric person that they know. And that is what Franny is doing in this book. So that really her life almost seems unimportant and we only get to hear tidbits about Franny, because the story is really about this strange woman, Linda, who seems completely unlucky in love. I was intrigued by her character because she definitely seems to fall in love rather quickly and doesn't understand why this leads to the heartbreaks that it leads to. Indeed, with her first marriage, maybe she didn't feel so much heartbreak. Maybe she was looking for an escape. With her second relationship, she almost seems to welcome it as well. It's almost as though what Linda loves in life is the idea of love. This rose-tinted view that she has of what it's going to be like. I did not care for the ending of this book. However, it stays true to the original ending of the original text. I really liked the character of Linda as this person who's constantly pursuing love. And I want to know if I would care for the character of Linda in The Pursuit of Love as much as I care for the character of Linda in Darling. Therefore, in future, I do plan, once I've read some more of the books on my shelves, to find The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford, read that book and compare it against this one to see whether the original Linda is as full of character as the Linda in Darling. I want to see how much influence the original text had on this, because from what I can tell, Darling is almost a carbon copy of The Pursuit of Love, just with a modern day setting told by a different writer. And I want to see how true that is. I want to know whether this author has managed to capture the same atmosphere as the other book, or whether they are able to stand on their own entirely separately. But I did adore this book. I would like to go back to this book in future, if only to see Uncle Matthew enthuse about a street cat named Bob and talk about how no other book or TV show or film would ever come close to that book. I liked the characters that India Knight created. Part of me thought this could be one of those books that I consider reading and rereading, because that's something that I always wonder about starting again. How when I was a child, I would read and reread a book when it was a favourite. Similar to what I do with films. When I find a favourite film, I tend to rewatch that more than go and find a new one, like with TV series and that sort of thing. And one day I think maybe I'll go back to doing that with books when I've read the majority of the ones that are on my shelves. And I could see Darling doing that. But I want to know whether The Pursuit of Love is going to give me those same feelings. And those are my thoughts on Darling by India Knight. If you've read this book and you've also read The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford, can you let me know how close they are in story and character? Because that is something that has been intriguing me for the last week. If you have read this book otherwise and would like to discuss it, then please feel free to do so in the comments. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.